Welcome to Golic and Smetty.
I'm Mike Golic.
I'm Jessica Smetana.
Welcome to another edition of the new year of Golic and Smetty. I'm Mike Golic Sr. She is Jess Smetana, and we are in 2024. Woohoo!
Woo! You already troubleshooted a tech issue this morning.
I mean, I don't.
We're off to a good start.
I don't know how that happened. I think I was like Will Ferrell in, I forgot the name of the movie, and I blacked out. And just was able to do it. So it is 2024. We have so much football to talk about, Jess. We're at football overload, but we just did finish New Year's. Now, we are, as people know by now, come from different generations. You are the age of my daughter. You graduated college the same year as my daughter. So we are certainly far different by decades in age. I can't remember the last time I made it to midnight. It doesn't matter what time zone. I'm in Arizona now, which is 10 o'clock out here. It would be midnight Eastern. I didn't make it till 10. Even if I lived in LA where my son lives, it would be 9 o'clock would be midnight.
So wait, you can't even make it to midnight Eastern when you're in the West. Okay.
And I don't even, and the thing about it is, yes, we don't even try. We don't, as soon as we start feeling tired, we're telling the dogs, let's go to bed. Let's go. We're not even fighting it to try and stay up. And even when I was younger, your age, even younger than your age, when I was, a dumb teenager or early 20s, I bought into this. I think this is the most overrated holiday where they make it, you think like you're missing something if you're not awake and for those of you that are, hey, I hope you have a ball. I hope you have a great time. Exactly. Yeah. But I have never felt out once I got on my dumb years of saying, why the hell do I need to be awake for this? It's going to be the new year, whether I'm up partying or not. So that's me. You, again, are young. You're not even in your 30s yet. Do you go out and party on New Year's Eve?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about being your daughter's age is that we're getting older, Mike. I think I've reached the point where like things are starting to change for me. And I think it happened around the time of quarantine and the pandemic and COVID. I was in my mid-20s. I was riding the high of like turning 25 and going out, my 25th birthday, Mike, we went out to a karaoke bar and I sang Janis Joplin karaoke so loud that I lost my voice for 3 weeks.
Good for you.
I was out late. I was up with the Rats walking home in New York City that night. And I can't fathom doing that now. It all changed during the pandemic when we couldn't go out for, like a year in New York,
right,
or maybe even longer. And it feels like I got it all out of my system. And ever since, New Year's Eve has just been one of those things, along with like my birthday and almost every other event that happens in a year, where it's just like every year a little less special, giving a little less of a shit about it.
So when's the last time you were up until midnight out?
Well, last night watching the college football playoff games, I can't believe I stayed up 2 hours later on January 1st than I did on New Year's Eve. And I was so mad about it. When I woke up this morning and I had probably 4.5, 5 hours of sleep. I was furious, Mike. But on New Year's Eve, to answer your question, I don't even remember what I did last year. It just is completely a blur. I have probably nothing because I can't remember it. But there was one year that my best friend got married on New Year's Eve, which is I don't know if you've ever been to a New Year's Eve wedding. It's like some people do, it's a trendy thing because you don't have to go to work the next day, and you can all be with all your friends at midnight when the ball drops and do a toast.
Right.
So that was fun. I was up till midnight that night. I had to carry her like 40-pound dress home after the wedding. So that was a fun New Year's Eve. But that's a very special occasion. Until her potential second or third wedding, I don't anticipate to stay up that late again celebrating with her. But that's about it. That's probably the last time.
What's interesting, Jess, is there were a lot of people that just a couple of days ago got married. They got married on New Year's Eve. And do you know why they got married on New Year's Eve?
Because of the date.
Do you believe this? 12/31/23 is 123/123. That could be one of the dumbest reasons to get married on that date. I mean, seriously.
That is such I my eyes were open to this recently when a friend of mine was getting engaged. People go crazy for specific dates for their weddings. Like if like 10/10 falls on a Saturday, that that date will be sold out months in advance at certain wedding venues because people really want that like cool looking anniversary date, I guess. I did
Yeah.
not know this was a
Yeah.
thing until recently, but all of this is to say that does not surprise me. I will say my friend who got married on New Year's Eve, God love her. It's a little confusing when, you know, you get married and then the year changes the next day. When she ordered her
Yeah.
thank you cards,
Yeah.
wrong year.
Yep.
She had New Year's Eve in 2022 and it was technically still 2021.
Yep.
So that can get a little bit
It can
confusing.
produce more trouble than it's worth. And then
Yeah.
also there are those, and this is not just a this year thing, but those that try and conceive in March so they can have the New Year's
New Year's
baby,
baby.
right?
Hmm.
Try and backtrack the time. There was the lady I saw that had twins. One of them was born on Christmas Eve night and the other on Christmas Eve day. It went over the midnight mark. So you actually had a Christmas Eve baby and a Christmas baby as twins, which is pretty cool, actually.
Wait, so you mean a New Year's baby?
No,
So
no,
like
no,
the
no, no,
birth.
no. This
Oh,
was this was
Christmas.
this was Christmas. So one
Oh,
was
okay.
born right before midnight on Christmas Eve, so it's a Christmas Eve baby, and the other was born a couple of
Wow.
minutes later, right after midnight, so it was a Christmas baby. So like my son Jake is a Christmas baby. He was born on Christmas Day.
Does
Uh,
he get double the presents or
Hell no,
does
no,
no?
no,
Okay. Yeah.
no. You know what? He doesn't want for a whole lot, so no, we're not. No, but you do kind of make sure you acknowledge it, as you're growing
Yeah.
up, and it's not just Christmas for everybody, and you forgot it's his birthday. So you
No.
always have to make sure that you acknowledge, the birthday. But yeah, the marriage is on 12/31/23, 1 2 3 1 2 3. This is what we're doing.
It's
I
just
mean,
it's funny because it's only in the United States, right? Because everyone else puts the date,
right,
month, day, year. So
right,
good luck explaining that one to
yeah.
my sister actually got married on February 29th. So her first wedding
Oh,
anniversary will be in this
right,
year will
leap
be
year.
February
Yeah,
29th because it's a leap year.
yeah.
Yeah.
How wild is that? Leap year confuses the
Yeah.
hell out of me. It really
I know. She's
does.
been married for 4 years and yet
Yeah.
this is her first anniversary.
Leap year, trying to figure out all that is trying to figure out scenarios for playoffs in the NFL. Once you get,
And in college
yeah,
football, honestly.
once you get past the second line, my eyes glaze over, and I just wait for
Right.
somebody to like. I'm so happy this week. I'm calling the Buffalo at Miami game Sunday night in Miami. Winner wins the division. Nice and simple, right?
Are we
Now,
gonna get a coffee?
uh,
Are we gonna hang out? I mean, I'm
well,
right
we're
here.
going to talk about that. We are definitely going to talk about that of what we can do Sunday because I get in late Saturday night, but I'll have Sunday obviously before the game. So we're going to have to chat about what we want to do. But at least that one, the winner is in. The winner wins the
Right.
division. Now, we have scenarios where the loser, especially if it's
Is also
Buffalo,
maybe in.
the
Right.
Buffalo may get knocked out if they lose, other different scenarios of which, again, my eyes have glazed over on that. But that's the NFL. We will get to the NFL. How many millions of people who made the New Year's resolution that they are going to get fit have already screwed up? Right? You already? So that was,
I baked a 4-layer cake yesterday.
oh,
Oh, it was so good. Mike, you would have loved it. I mean, I know you're not like a fruit
no.
person in your desserts, but trust me, it was like super dark chocolate fudgy layers with a chocolate mousse filling and fresh raspberries in the filling. And then 4 more layers of that and then chocolate frosting and then I put just a regular buttercream frosting on top and decorated it with some fresh raspberries. You would have trust me, the raspberries were the perfect amount of tart and fresh fruit for the chocolate ratio. It was
Just because I'm a
perfect.
chocolate
That's it.
freak, I would have tried it, and because you made it and you're such a great baker. What
Maybe I'll keep some around for Sunday when you
what
come by.
what did you make it for?
Just myself. I well, we
Wow.
did have people over
Because
for
Lee, if again, people know
New
your
Year's.
boyfriend Lee does not like desserts, which I don't know how the
Yeah,
hell you 2 can be together, quite honestly,
I
when you
know.
bake
And
the way you do.
he made a huge pot of chili. So we had a huge thing of chili. We had a few friends over to watch the playoff games. We were, excited. It's going to be great. First game ended at like 9 o'clock, and everyone was like, "All right, we're tapping out for the night." So that was our New Year's Day. Honestly, I think New Year's Day is a more fun day to celebrate
Yeah.
than New Year's Eve. I'd rather wake up on New Year's Day not
Yes.
hungover,
Yep.
go outside, go for a walk. I mean, it's always nice out here in Miami. You enjoy, soak up the sun, cook, have your friends over. My family used to always have New Year's Day. People would come over and we watch the Rose Bowl together.
Right.
So
Yep.
that's my favorite holiday that no one really celebrates. Is just the day of January 1st when no one has to go to work.
Yeah. It's such a difference. And you realize it at a certain age out of college that waking up hungover just isn't worth it anymore. You'd rather enjoy the day. And one of the reasons I love living out here at this time of year in Arizona with football, the games for me, the playoff games were 3 o'clock, 6:45.
So
Awesome.
jealous.
I mean,
I'm so jealous.
just absolutely awesome. Even better if you're in LA like Mike is, it's even an hour earlier. So love it out here on the West Coast for those reasons. But we had so to the games and to the bowl games, and I want to get into the other bowls and the blowouts and the talk of, how do we avoid a Georgia Florida State situation. But let's give the due to the four teams that played. Jess, I think we got exactly what we thought we were going to get. With Bama and Michigan, you were going to get line of scrimmage play, a lot of running, beat downs, physical game, close game. Obviously it went to overtime. And in the nightcap, Washington and Texas, you were going to get a bit of a shootout. And you did 37-31, a higher scoring affair. So, and remember the first, I think it was 8 years of this playoffs, we had, if not one, both semifinal games were 2-score games. Last year, they were 1-score games, both of them, I believe. And then this year, I mean, my God, you go to overtime in one game, and the other one is a pass in the end zone away from Texas beating Washington. I don't think you could ask for much better.
I agree. Both of these games were awesome. And I thought that the Alabama-Michigan game, I think actually I picked Alabama and Texas in the championship, and you picked Washington and Michigan. So congratulations. That is first thing in order. But I don't feel bad about my picks because both games really came down to the final play. And I thought that you're absolutely right about Alabama and Michigan being a game that came down to, the battle in the trenches. But what surprised me about it was that Michigan won that battle. I thought for a lot of especially that final play. Oh my God. I think Jalen Milroe probably wants to have that one back. But the Alabama offensive line also, you see that video of their right tackle just getting bowled over on that play. And I think it looks like he hurt himself too. I'm not sure if that's why he was bowled over or not, but just absolutely crazy to see that happen to Alabama in a championship or in the Rose Bowl, in a playoff game or any sort of game of this caliber. You're just not used to seeing that really. And especially when Nick Saban's got a month to prepare.
Yeah.
And their offense came out looking like they couldn't snap the ball well. They had a lot of just mistakes, just the things that you don't typically see from an Alabama football team in this position. I thought that was what surprised me the most about this game. And I think that was ultimately how Michigan was able to come away with the win.
The physicality on the Michigan defensive side of what they did to Alabama offense, 5 sacks in the first half, and really no adjustments until the second half, kind of leaving the O-line just to block, the Michigan defense with no help at all. And we saw the results of that. You didn't have Jalen Milroe on the move at all. The second half, it completely changed to you had help in, you had Milroe on the move. So a tale of two halves. But Michigan, you're right about an Alabama team being out physical. And Michigan did it. But Michigan, again, does have the best statistical defense in FBS. So it's not shocking that they played well, but you're right. You don't normally see an Alabama team out physical and then confused. How many times in the first half did you see the DBs for Alabama pointing to one another? Like they were surprised about something or confused about something and blew a coverage, which was amazing because neither one of these teams you would consider a passing team, but Alabama making the mistakes in the secondary as well. This game could have gone either way. Michigan was the better team. Michigan, I think, was the better team. And it's interesting, Mike and I were doing our show, my son Mike, and if you really look at that last play, a good snap, helps that play a lot because for a split second, it opened up to exactly what they wanted. The end man on the line, I think it was Will Johnson, The DB came flying up the field. They
Mhm.
sent the back in motion. The linebacker went with them. You pulled your right guard, and Milroe almost got in his hip pocket and I think could have gotten in. But you mentioned the tackle, J.C. Latham, 360 pounds, by the way. So give a lot of credit to Josiah Stewart, was a defender
Yeah.
for Michigan that just trucked him back into the backfield that Milroe tripped over him. Now, I will say, and you said it, you said it already, it looked like Latham got hurt. Did he get hurt during the play, and that's maybe why he got pushed back, or did he get hurt after he got pushed back and fell on the ground? That I don't know. But a great play by Stewart, the defender.
Yeah. A transfer portal
Yeah.
player also who played at Coastal Carolina before.
I mean, you can almost say that about any player, right?
Yeah,
Oh, he's a
right.
transfer player.
Yeah.
But I mean,
True.
the play looked like it had a chance, but I'm amazed at that part of the season, the snapping issues that they
Yes.
had in the
Me
shotgun.
too.
Absolutely shocked by that. And Michigan almost gave this game up on the special teams. Bad
Yes.
snap on an extra point, missing a field goal, muffing a punt. I mean, that was amazing that you come down to this game and that's almost how you lose it.
And that muff punt was
Oh,
so close. I mean, that could have been the game right there. I actually so as much crap as I'm sure Tommy Rees is getting today for that
yeah,
play call, I also think Alabama's defense letting Michigan come march down the field 75 yards,
yes,
8
yep,
plays, 3 minutes, 3-minute drive to tie the game late in the fourth quarter after Alabama had the lead most of the fourth quarter. I think all of the fourth quarter up until that point and towards the end of the third quarter too. They scored I think like right towards the end of the third quarter to go up by 4. It just that to me, I mean, that is a terrible, terrible series for their
yep,
defense. There was tackling issues. Like you'd see Michigan players get 4 or 5 extra
yeah,
yards just running down the sidelines after an Alabama player wouldn't be able to just nudge them out of bounds. Like that was the difference in this game, right? Like
yeah.
that drive to me was more so the game than the overtime play, which I thought, as soon as it went to overtime, I did not think Alabama was going to win that game. Michigan scored
Yeah.
so easily in their first overtime possession, and also I think when you're like neutralizing the rest of the field of play, you're just giving them 25 yards each team. I do think Michigan has the advantage in that game over Alabama.
I would agree. And I agree with you about the last drive. As you mentioned, 8 plays, 75 yards, just over 3 minutes. A 4th and 2 where I thought Michigan may punt because they had their 3 timeouts. They have the best defense in the country that they would have played the field position game and pin Bama back and then get a 3 and out, use your timeouts and get the ball back. But they went for it, get the 27-yard gain on a little toss to Blake Corum there, which was a phenomenal play. And then, quite honestly, Bama's got the ball, 1:34 to go, and they got a booming kicker, right? Who made a couple of 50-yarders. So
Yeah.
all they got to do is get in field goal range, 5 plays, and they got to punt back. And it almost turns disastrous for Michigan. But they got to punt the ball back. And I'm with you. When it went to overtime, I definitely favored Michigan in that one, and then they scored so easily. But
Yeah, but you just gotta get. I mean, Michigan. They all season, and I've been like the first person to say this. Like they didn't play very many hard teams like early in the season. I mean, their season really started like week 11 or week 10, right when they played Penn State.
yes,
You didn't really get to see them play a non-conference schedule. You didn't really know like JJ McCarthy was not throwing the ball
nope,
very much towards the end of the season. Looked kind of banged up. Looked not that great. Their defense played really well, obviously down the stretch, and then they lost their right guard in the
yeah.
final regular season game of the year. And I thought like maybe those things, given Alabama's struggles this year, maybe those things kind of make this one lean towards Alabama. And you have Nick Saban as your head coach, and he's been in this position how many times? But Michigan, you just have to give. I hate to say it, Mike. You have to give Jim Harbaugh a lot of credit for this because they were the more physical team, and they looked like, despite their mistakes as well, like you said,
Yeah.
especially on special teams, I mean, they just looked like they were ready to play, and they gave Alabama's offense fits the entire game.
They did. Again, 5 sacks in the first half. Absolutely amazing. Just got 1 in the second half. So Alabama did make some adjustments to that. But I think the better team won this one. I think the better team is moving on to the title game. They got a shot to win it. I'm early already saying I am picking Washington in this game as we go to Washington and Texas. Washington gets a win 37-31. Washington's defense, unfortunately, is not that great. I think Michigan could have a chance to control the ball. But this Washington offense against this Michigan defense, what a matchup this is going to be, from protection of Michael Penix Jr. to coverage down the field with Polk and Odunze. Each had 100 yards in this game. They're incredible on this offensive side of the ball. And I think Michael Penix, and I said it all along about him, I would be close to putting him as the third quarterback coming up in this draft behind Williams and May. They were talking about Penix early on at the third round pick. I love the way he plays. I love the way he slides in the pocket and keeps his eyes downfield. He's very smooth. He's very, very accurate. Receivers should love to play for him because it's not just about completions. It's about giving the receiver a chance after he catches the ball to get some yards. But this game was just like the first game, Jess, was just what we thought. This game, the same thing. We expected a shootout, and that's what we got, score for score. Washington got up a couple of scores, and you thought they're going to ice this thing. I thought they kind of got cute on one of their drives in the fourth quarter and ended up going 3 and out, and that's when Texas went down and scored and got within one score, and you thought, Washington got screwed around here, and Texas made this thing a game. This was another good one, but I do think the better team won in this one as well.
Got cute is exactly what everyone that I was watching the game with was saying after that drive for Washington. And also, I mean, the end of game management, I don't disagree with their decision to keep running the ball and try to get a first down, right? Because the way that the timing was,
right,
like, first down wins the game,
right,
but you don't want to give it back to Texas if you don't have to. But putting their already sort of injured running back in there to run those plays, and then who got
hurt.
Dylan Johnson got hurt, like hurt, and the clock stopped. That was, I thought, oh my God, like worst case scenario, and clearly not. Didn't end up working out the way that they wanted because Texas was able to get the ball back and had a chance to win the game. And I guess you could also criticize their final call of the game that kind of. They had done it earlier in the game and it worked, but it was a much harder catch, I thought, that final play. You're asking the receiver to basically do what Santonio Holmes did in Super Bowl 43, which is like stay on your tiptoes and reach over and catch it. And that's just such a high difficulty pass and catch. And the DB for Washington defended it perfectly, just kind of swatting it out of bounds. So really tough final drive for Texas. I felt like both of these games, if I had a rooting interest, I would have been just an absolute wreck because both games just came down to the wire. Both teams down the stretch, whether it's the muff punt or the injury for Washington or, any of these things, like just absolutely horrible ways that you could see yourself losing a game. Like we've all seen our teams do it. And it just ended up working out for Washington that Texas wasn't able to put together that final drive. But like you said about Michael Penix, like the definition of dropping dimes. He had so many passes in this game specifically, and we've seen him do it all season, Mike. And that's why, even though Jaden Daniels was super deserving of the Heisman, I said all along, I really like Michael Penix. I probably would have voted for him if I had a Heisman vote. And I felt very reassured by that after this game. There are so many passes where you just watch it, just the accuracy, just pinpoint precision. And he's got these 3 wide receivers that, it's hard enough to, guard one guy like that on a college football field, but he has 3 of them. And you could see how they're just able to run the offense that they want when you have guys making plays like this, and he's able to just put the ball in the perfect position for them to catch it.
There's talk that he has better wide receivers than some NFL teams have on their teams. And if Penix does go higher in the draft, he's all likely going to a bad team, and he may be wishing for his receivers again. He throws for 430 yards, 4th most in a CFP.
Hey, the Bears have 2 early first-round picks. You could get Penix and Odunze next year, right?
Wouldn't that be something? Well, the Bears are going to take Caleb Williams with the number 1. They have the number 1 pick, and that's who they're going to take in this one. But what a game this was. And I agree with you about that run. A lot of people said, should he just take a knee at that point? I don't mind the run. You never expect somebody to get hurt. And I know people will say, well, you take all that out if you just kneel on the ball. But man, how about that working against you? The clock stops because your own guy gets hurt. And that last play was interesting that there wasn't an adjustment made, Jess. Now I know we're diving into the weeds here a little bit. If you look at the DB, he was playing off, knowing full well what play was coming. The adjustment to me was for the receiver to just get right into the end zone and just turn outward and just throw it to the first pylon. And I think they had a touchdown instead of lobbing it up because the DB was playing back on that one, expecting that play. But again, that happens. They both got, Texas got far. Texas is back, as they say. But I do think the better teams won. Before we get to the rest of the bowls, or really a question about the bowls, do you have an early pick? Like I said, I think Washington is the underdog right out of the gate, I believe. But I'm picking Washington to win this game, even though I do think overall, like continuity-wise, I think Michigan has the better overall team.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to pick against Michigan given the way that they kind of bullied Alabama around on the line. And Washington's defense I thought they played really well
Yeah.
given they were, the weaker unit on the field yesterday, but Michael Penn, I think people have been waiting for Washington to lose all season long, whether it was in the regular season when they played close games in, Pac-12 play and close games against Washington State, and then the Pac-12 championship game where they were a heavy underdog, whether it was this game against Texas that, a lot of people didn't pick them to win it. People are just waiting for them to win or for them to lose, and they just keep winning. Yeah. So I really have a hard time picking against either team, but I guess I don't know how Michigan loses this if they play the way that they did last night. Like, they showed that they have a pass game that works against a good defense. They showed that their run game still is working. Just cut out the mistakes, and their defense is just going to body people. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm excited for it though. I really hope it ends before 1 a.m. though. Yeah. I don't know if I can do that.
It's supposed to start at 7:30 Eastern, I think, Jess. I think that's when it's supposed to start. But
that's when they start all
the hoopla. I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I think Michigan overall is a better team, but I'm going with Washington because they're never going to be out of this. With the offense and the way it can score, they're always going to be able to come back. So we'll see. As far as the rest of the bowl season, it seems now, Jess, there's a couple of things to go to. First, I think all the bowls now should try and be like the Pop-Tarts Bowl and try and say, look at us over here and don't watch the game necessarily because some of the games are so bad. Let's have a edible, mascot that gets ripped apart after a game. Or the Cheez-Its Bowl, or the Tiger Bowl that Notre Dame was in, where they dumped the flakes, the frosted flakes. Yeah. Marcus. It seems like bowl games have to find that hook now because it's not really the game anymore.
I think that the Pop-Tart Bowl broke contain. Like, the Pop-Tart mascot being sacrificed on television was something that appealed to people outside of college football in a very macabre way that I don't even know if Pop-Tarts marketing executives could have ever expected. Yeah. It was very disturbing. It was very strange. The Pop-Tart was craving death at the end of its short life, and then it was devoured by Kansas State players on the field. It was incredibly bizarre. I don't know, next year I think every bowl executive is going to try to replicate that. Yep. I can't think of a weirder thing to try to go back in time and tell myself like 7 years ago than like, hey, they're going to sacrifice the Pop-Tart mascot at the end of the Pop-Tart Bowl. And like, I just nod, okay, yes, like, sure. I'm hallucinating.
I think bowls are going to try and outdo each other. Remember, it was the Duke's Mayo Bowl where my son.
Oh, and that's old news now.
My son calling the game is dipping Oreos and mayonnaise.
Mayonnaise been there.
They're pouring mayonnaise on the winning coach, and now they just got outdone by the Pop-Tarts Bowl, which was the most viewed bowl game before the playoff games. So I think that these sponsors are going to keep trying to outdo one another. And then there's the games themselves. You look at Florida State, Georgia. First, I'll say this, because I thought Florida State should have been in the Final Four. That Florida State defense could have held up against either one, Bama or Michigan. Yeah. Could have absolutely held up because they're a phenomenal defense. I don't know what their offense would have done, but their defense would have been right there. That being said, they have over 20 opt-outs in their game against Georgia, and they get smoked. And even Kirby Smart after the game said, something's got to be done. Jess, I don't know what can be done. The easiest thing to do would be don't start the portal as early as you do. So all these kids don't have to opt out before the bowl game. But they do the portal so the kids can get enrolled in their new schools.
Right, because they do technically have to go to school.
This is still our student-athlete part of this. So the student-athlete part of this says, well, because they have to enroll a new school, we have to have the portal at this time. So I don't know what's going to make this better, Jess. I don't know what's going to help.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that, like, it's there's, like, different tiers of bowl games, right? There's, like, the 5 and or I guess 6 and 6, like, MAC team that's playing earlier in bowl season against, like, a CUSA team, like, there's those games, and then there's, like, the 9 and 3 NC State versus I think they were 9 and 3 Kansas State, where, like, those players aren't there's not going to be that many of them that are opting out. Maybe if a coach leaves, there will be a
Right,
lot in the
right.
portal. And like those games in that kind of middle like category still I thought were pretty competitive this year. Like I thought the Wisconsin LSU game, even though LSU had a bunch of opt-outs and Wisconsin had a couple opt-outs, ended up being a really, really exciting game on
Yep.
Monday. The Pop-Tart Bowl, no one's ever going to talk about who played in the Pop-Tart
No,
Bowl because of what happened
no,
after it. But that ended up being like a pretty good game
it
too.
did.
There were a handful of those kind of like middle, like the Gator Bowl, Clemson and Kentucky, craziest fourth quarter of a college football game that I think I watched this year. It was just an insane Clemson comeback. So like that like kind of tier right ahead of or right I guess right behind the New Year's 6 games. There's still some fun games being played and good competition there. But then like you've got the New Year's 6 games where I think maybe there's more players going into the NFL so they're opting
Right,
out or maybe
right.
there's more players portaling or whatever it is. Like those games I thought were for the most part pretty lopsided. I know there's only a couple because they're also count as playoff games now, but like Oregon and Liberty was never really going to be competitive because Oregon was just in a different league than Liberty this season, like literally and figuratively. And they didn't have a lot of opt outs, but they destroyed them. The Cotton Bowl was brutal to watch. It
Oh,
was like, and that was partially because of opt outs, I think, too, for Ohio State and Missouri. So,
yep.
I mean, I don't know. It's not like they're all like this. It's just some of the marquee games have been like this year. So I don't know what you have to fix necessarily because people are still watching it because people are addicted to
And
football.
people have been complaining about bowl games since I was doing Mike and Mike at ESPN.
Yeah,
It's always
right,
like there's too many. These are horrible games. To which my answer
right.
was always, don't friggin' turn it on then. You have a choice. Who cares if there's 90 bowl games? You don't have to watch if you don't like bowl season. So I don't think outside of moving the portal time that anything can be done in this one. And you're right about you wondered about Oregon and Liberty. 2.5 minutes into the game, Liberty's up 6-0. You're like,
Yeah.
whoa, 45-6 later, that's a blowout. So they're always going to be what they're going to be. I don't see that getting any better unless a massive rule change happens, which I don't see happening either.
There's enough I think, like, every year there's enough really
Yeah,
competitive, like, unexpected great games that I'm like, it's a mixed bag, right? Like, they're not all going to be like that, and there are going to be games where you don't know any of the players on a team's offense because they're
right.
all backups, but I don't think that that's necessarily like, there's never going to be a situation where every single one of these games
Right.
is competitive, right? Like,
Too
college
many of them.
football is
Right.
there's such a wide gulf between the amount of resources and talent at programs and who's really like bought into wanting to play in the bowl game and who's not. I just don't know to how you make any sort of fix for it. It does. I do agree. It stinks that the New Year's 6 games in particular, like a player wouldn't stick around for that.
Right.
But that's been happening since
It
before the
has.
portal and
Right.
just look at Jalen Smith and the Fiesta Bowl.
Yep.
Like you could ruin your
Mm-hmm.
draft prospects so easily if you get
You
hurt in
can.
one of these
You
games. So
absolutely
that has
can.
nothing to do with like any of this, in my
You
opinion.
just have more people now with the portal. So
Yeah.
lots of games. Some are going to be good. Some are going to be bad. Nothing has changed there. So by the time we tape our next podcast, the champion will be crowned. Again, I'm going with Washington. You're going with Michigan, correct?
Yeah, we'll say
Okay,
that.
so we're on opposite sides as far as that is concerned.
I hope you're right.
Yeah, coming up next, we'll go to the NFL where the playoff scenarios are abundant, and I stop looking at them because it makes my eyes glaze over. Jess, the NFL side of this, first, I'm really looking forward to calling the Buffalo at Miami game because you and I can hang out, and the winner of that game wins a division. You got to love, as a player, man, that's all you can ask for is the meaning coming down to it at the end. What am I playing for? And both these teams, there's good scenarios where they can both end up in the playoffs, but one will win the division and get a home field game while the other will be a wild card. But really, if you're in any scenario where at least you find you're playing for something, your Pittsburgh Steelers, as bad as they have looked at times, are still have and my game could have something to do with it if Buffalo loses, depending on what happens on because it's the last weekend, all the games are on Sunday. Or I'm sorry, there's 2 games on Saturday and then the rest on Sunday. No Monday night game. So by the time we get to the Monday night game, basically we're going to know all the particular outcomes in the AFC based off the outcome of Buffalo and Miami. But all the different scenarios. But if you just know and hope that you're playing for something right now.
Yeah, I mean, this is the last 2 weeks since we last recorded an episode of the show. I feel like the pendulum has swung like different. First, like Miami beats the Cowboys. It's a huge win for them right on Christmas Eve. Now they get destroyed by the Ravens going into the final week of the season. You have the Ravens who now look like totally resurgent. I think I said like my MVP pick 2 weeks ago. Sure, give it to Brock Purdy. Now I'm like, no, that was a terrible choice. It's Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is playing out of his mind, and the Ravens look awesome. And if I were John Harbaugh, I would bench him and not play any of the starters. In fact, I would just forfeit the game on Sunday. Just let the Steelers take the win. And I'm only being like half facetious about it because if you're the Ravens, like there's probably a less than 0.2% chance the Steelers win any playoff game, even if they do make it. But you'd rather play them in the playoffs than the Bills, I would think, right? You don't want, I would not want to play Buffalo in the postseason. The Steelers are just too much of a like fluctuating team to be concerned.
Let me tell you, every other AFC playoff team would love Buffalo to not be in the playoffs without question.
Right, exactly. So Ravens, just sit this one out.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you because there are those that think, and I think ridiculously, that you should play your guys to make it fair because why give Pittsburgh a possible pass to maybe get in the playoffs? And my thought process, you do what is right for your team. And if that means you wrap everybody in bubble wrap and don't play them, then don't play them. I'm a firm believer in that and what you just said. And then there's the rest versus rust. Because remember, if all those starters don't play, you also have a bye the first week. So now you got 2 weeks of inactivity for a one and done scenario of the playoffs. It's not multiple games. It's not a series. So what's the thought then on rust versus, rest on that? I can't remember where John Harbaugh sits on that. We'll obviously find out when this game goes on this weekend. So I would rest guys. I would take my chance with the rest versus rust because I don't want a guy injured. Look at Miami right at the end of that game. The end of that game where it's not even a game, you lose Bradley Chubb, your second best rusher, because your first best rusher has already been lost in Jalen Phillips earlier. So, I mean, my God, did they just get hammered in that one where Mike McDaniel had to answer some questions about why you had guys in at the end of that game, were in the position to get hurt because of where that game was going. So I'm a firm believer. I'm with you. Rest them. And in this case, it may help your Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah. I mean, it's a risk reward proposition, right? And like losing a player that you need in the playoffs to an injury, a very tangible thing that can and does happen in football games, feels like a way bigger risk than the potential reward of like, we'll keep our division rival out of the playoffs potentially, or, we'll get a few more reps in before we take a week off because we have the bye. Like that just to me doesn't feel like a really like concrete excusable reason to potentially risk losing, a player that you're going to need in a game down the road. So I would just bench everyone and in fact, just not play the game.
Along those lines, John Harbaugh, after the win, said about that situation, resting players, he said, we've got to kind of work through the injury part of it first, meaning coming off the game they just played. That'll take us probably 24 to 48 hours to get a real handle on that. Then we'll make those decisions. We're not going to keep it a secret. We'll let you know what we're going to do once we start practicing on Wednesday. And then it's a note here, if Jackson doesn't play or any starters who don't play, it would be at least a 19-day break between games by the time they would.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
I would love a 19-day break.
It does.
Before the next time I have to do my job.
Unless you come out a little rusty. And for us, if we're mispronouncing words or tripping over ourselves, which I do anyway.
Yeah, me
Where
too. It
we
doesn't matter.
where we don't
I'm
really
always
well, we
rusty.
don't really care about it. But if you're in a game and all of a sudden you fumble or throw an interception or miss a tackle, and next thing you know, you're the number one seed and you're out of the playoffs, they would care about it a lot more. But I think Baltimore they've beaten division leaders the last 3 weeks, right? Miami, which led the East. They beat San Francisco, which led in the NFC their division. And before that, they beat Jacksonville, though that may not be the greatest win in the world, but still they were leading, they're leading the AFC South. So they look good there. I tell you, Jess, in all honesty, the team that may be the biggest threat to Baltimore, Cleveland. Cleveland is playing unbelievably well right now. I think Kevin Stefanski is going to win Coach of the Year. To be where you are with four starting quarterbacks, blows my mind. Absolutely blows my mind. So, because Kansas City,
That would be
wouldn't it?
narratively Flacco playing in Baltimore. I
Yes.
mean, can you imagine the storylines would be just out of control, Mike? I want to know who your pick is though for the game that you're calling on Sunday night, because Miami is now heading into this final stretch with, like you said, a lot of injuries, a lot of important injuries, and Tyreek Hill got hurt on Sunday. Um, Baltimore was just pouring it on at the end
Right.
of that
They
game. They
were.
didn't have a chance, but now they're playing a division rival who, I think in Buffalo, I would pick Buffalo to win this game, but in Miami, I'm leaning probably more towards Miami, although nothing would really shock me there. So what do you do with this? Buffalo I wrote them off after like week 6 or 7, and now all of a sudden I'm like, ugh, I don't know. They're still in
Well,
this.
first off, I can't pick the game because I'm calling it.
Oh, true. You have integrity. I
Yes,
forgot.
yes, I
Can't
will
relate.
not pick the game. But man, like I said, this is all you can hope for as a player, where you don't have to, because right now what happens is a lot of scoreboard watching. Is if you have a chance to get in, but you need help. It's the old you have to do this and something else has to happen. So you have to win and watch the scoreboard. One year in Philly, we finished our season in Dallas and we beat Dallas, but we had to wait for the outcome of another game. And we all actually waited on the sideline. Our PR person was actually on a landline phone with the press box of the game that we needed to know the outcome from. And we found out on the sideline in Dallas that we had in fact got what we needed and won the division. So our worked for us of what we needed. So you have to hope Josh Allen plays one of his best games and doesn't turn the ball over. He's got 16 interceptions this year. You wonder how healthy. As I'm starting to get ready for this game, the injury report for the Dolphins is ridiculous.
Brutal.
And that's something that we always talk about as attrition by the end of the year. Are you getting healthy or are you hurt? And again, your two top pass rushers gone in Miami. Now, Phillips has been gone for a little bit, but losing Bradley Chubb at the end of that one, just brutal. So this, I think, is going to be an excellent game, and then it'll obviously set everything in place. What's interesting to me, Jess, is out in the NFC, the 49ers with that number one seed, it looks like the Cowboys can be too. The amazing matchup to me right now, if the season ended now, we do have one more week, would have the Rams visiting the Lions. I mean, the flip-flop of quarterbacks.
Love that.
And
yeah.
both teams, even though the Lions just lost by a point to Dallas on that crazy,
ridiculous ending. Another game that I did not stay up to watch, but I woke up and I was like, what happened here?
Absolutely crazy. But what a game that would be, because I keep talking about the depth of San Francisco's offensive talent. But you look at the Lions, and what they have with Laporta and what he's done, and St. Brown and Jameson Williams and what he's now coming on to, and the two-headed monster in the backfield. And then with the Rams when they're healthy, of having Kupp, of having Puka Nacua, of having Kyron Williams, Tutu Atwell. I know he's been nicked up a little bit, but they've had others step up. So I look forward to that. And almost to me, Jess, even though they're not playing well at all, the Philadelphia Eagles, to lose that game against Arizona at home was horrible. But if they remain in the 5 slot, their first game could be either at Tampa Bay or at New Orleans, which if you're looking for a matchup that you could get by, that's it, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
neither of those teams are offensive juggernauts at all, and defense is where the Eagles have been struggling. So the Eagles in the 5th slot could actually be a decent matchup for them, because if the Cowboys stay in the 2nd slot, as it stands, they'd probably play the Packers, and Jordan Love and the Packers are playing pretty well right now. So it's interesting when you start to look at the possibility of matchups coming up.
We need congressional intervention on the NFC South division because it's been a rough year.
At least there's a winning record, right? At least that what? Oh no, it's
Well,
500.
New Orleans is 8 and
The
8
New Orleans and
and
Tampa Bay are both 8-8, so they
okay.
both could go to a losing record. At least Jacksonville, Indy, and Houston, they all have 9 wins, so that'll be because they were for a while looking like the NFC South. The AFC South was, but they've picked it up a little bit. But I love this last weekend.
Me too. It's
It
gonna be. I do you ever wish that they did like soccer style, like all the games are at once, so everything kind of you play them all at once and everything shakes out in real time. Like, wouldn't it be a
Yes,
little exciting if every game was at 1 o'clock this
it would be
weekend?
better, I think, yeah, if you could pull that off. Yes, I would agree with that. And what they try and do, because if you look at what, like 2 weeks ago, if you looked at the Week 18 schedule, everything was TBD because they don't do anything until after last week's
I
game's
loved
over.
they when they announced it and Collinsworth and Tarico were in their like
Yeah,
tuxedos
yes, yeah,
on New Year's Eve announcing the times of the games to me. That was a very special wow, I'm washed moment
yeah,
because I was sitting on the couch on New Year's Eve like, "Ooh,
yeah.
Dolphins game is a night game this weekend."
I'm
We'll
watching
see.
this instead of being entertained by something else. No, I
I'm
agree with you,
sober. Yeah.
but everything on at one time would probably be better, because that's what they're trying to figure out. Is they don't want to put meaning. They're trying to figure out the time so there isn't meaningless games going
Right.
on.
Like, you
Or
don't wanna
yeah,
put the Ravens-Steelers game at night and then Lamar Jackson doesn't
right,
start, and that's
exactly.
your
It's
prime
exactly
time.
right. So there is a method to their madness, but every game starting at 1 o'clock
That would be
would be
great. I
great.
would that would be the best episode of Red Zone of the
The,
year
the
by
only the
far.
only problem with that is that any teams that have a home game on the West Coast are starting at 10 in the morning, which I personally would like, quite
Yeah.
honestly.
I mean, it's like the Fiesta Bowl. It's like a 11 a.m.
Yes,
local kickoff
yes,
on New Year's Day.
yeah,
Ridiculous. No fan should have to do that.
exactly,
Although
exactly right. So there it is. So we're getting ready. We'll finish up Week 18 this week. We wait for the college national championship game next Monday. I have not seen an opening line on that. I can't believe it's going to be too many points. I would think 4 at the most on
yeah.
that one.
I have a plan. I have an idea for us this weekend. So you're gonna be in Miami.
Yes,
You're getting in late
late
Saturday.
Saturday.
I'm in Miami. I have a small Christmas present for you that I was going to ship to you along with cookies that I baked. However, I baked the cookies and they were so crumbly that I didn't think they would be able to survive
Right.
a cross country shipping. So I can hand deliver them to you if we
So
meet up on Sunday morning.
here's what we have to work through.
Okay.
I'm flying into Fort Lauderdale and we're staying up there.
For you, I think maybe, no promises, maybe that 25-minute drive on Sunday morning could work out. But I wouldn't do it for Gojo.
I appreciate that very much. So you would do that for me, but not for Gojo.
I think, well, if it saves me a trip to the post office, I think it might be worth
There you go.
it.
If you come out there, I'll buy you breakfast. How about
Oh,
that?
okay. A little barter.
Yeah,
All right.
do it when obviously there's not going to be some heavy traffic.
Which is
I
never,
was just
but
going to say,
Sunday morning is a good
I
bet. All
I
right.
completely understand if you can't, because I don't know what.
I'll talk to my chauffeur,
Yeah, there you go. But
see what Lee
if you
thinks.
come up and anybody who comes up, I will buy breakfast
All
for you,
right.
and then I will take the cookies up to the booth, which they will be ecstatic about.
Okay.
So that would, because whenever we go to Denver, Ryan Radke, my partner, his sister lives there, and we let her come up in the booth, and she brings a few dozen cookies that she makes, and they're awesome. So, and I know yours are great. So that will be. I hope we can work this out,
We'll see. No
because
promises.
I won't have a car. I won't have a ride. I know I could Uber, but
No, don't worry yourself. I'll figure this out. I'll talk to my chauffeur, buy a few sticks of butter. We'll see where Saturday takes us.
Oh my God. See, now I'm building, it's built up in my head that it's all going to happen. So I just have to keep my expectations padded down a little bit.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll see you on Sunday.
Okay.